go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to jump into valuing your business with Scott Bushke today. We are very grateful to have Scott here, considering he's currently doing this webinar from his couch, recovering from a surgery yesterday afternoon for after breaking his ankle in a very interesting track meet. So if you want to share any more of that story, I will let you do that, Scott. I'm going to jump into introducing you, though. So Scott is the managing partner and founder of Cornerstone Business Services, with more than 20 years in the M&A industry. Scott is a recognized leader in the field, providing exit strategies, sell and buy side transitions, along with valuation services in the lower middle market. We do a lot of work with Scott and send a lot of referrals his way as well. Over the years, Scott has successfully executed hundreds of transactions domestically and internationally, working with private equity firms, family offices, and strategic buyers, both public and private. Scott has the trust and respect of CPA and financial advisor alliances, investment banks, and other professional services firms around the M&A marketplace. Scott, thank you so much for doing this. I think this is such a great and important topic, and the vast majority of businesses that I meet with who haven't met with you or someone like you to get that valuation done initially, it really is a disadvantage for those conversations, and to see them when they've kind of started the conversations with potential buyers, and we see them often underselling and underpricing themselves, or just entering in with very unrealistic expectations. So I think you bring a lot of clarity to this process, and I think it's such a crucial beginning piece to it. So I will hand it off to you and let you take it from here.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Heather. And we can keep this as informal or interactive as possible. So if anybody has any questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand or ask a question, and Heather can kind of pop in, or definitely I'll have my email address at the end. If you don't feel comfortable asking the questions in the group, feel free to email or call me after the presentation. But yes, what Heather was referring to, the last presentation we did, for many of you that were on this, we're making the first motion picture rated documentary on mergers and acquisitions. So I was interviewing an attorney in Colorado while we were doing this, so I couldn't be live. Well, I promised her I would be live and my picture on the screen. Well, Thursday night I took my kids to a track meet. I've done track all my life, grade school, high school. I did decathlon for 4 years in college, and took my 6, 9, and 12-year-old to a track meet. And things started off well. My 6-year-old won the 100-meter dash. My 9-year-old won. My 12-year-old took second, and I took first. Then we moved to long jump, and my 2 younger ones won, and my oldest was really close to winning, but she hadn't won yet, and she's very competitive like I am. So with her 2 younger brother and sisters getting medals and her not, she was a little upset. She'd taken 2 jumps, and she wasn't quite had the right form because we didn't practice. And she's like, I'm done. I don't want to take any more jumps. I'm like, look, you have 2 jumps left. Just take the jumps. And I'm like, I'll take a jump if you take a jump. I've jumped 1,000 times into a long jump pit or more. Well, I ran and jumped, and I now understand why most people at the Olympics are not 47 years old and they're in their 20s or younger, because my ankle just completely snapped. I broke my fibula. I ripped a deltoid ligament right off of my bone, and less than 24 hours ago, I had a pretty interesting surgery. So so hopefully the drugs will keep me sane and I can get through this presentation. But it was a fun couple of days, to say the least.
If you get a little loopy, we understand. We're all going to roll with it. It's okay.
Yeah. So as you said, Heather, the valuation is such a key piece, because I have saw a few stats in here, but over 60% of the time, the business owner needs to sell their company in order to live out their ideal lifestyle, like Michael was talking about. And unfortunately, as you'll see later, very few business owners get a valuation done at any time in their business career or in their life cycle, let alone every 2 or 3 years, just to kind of keep tabs on what their largest asset typically is. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as you can see here, if it comes through, we're off to a good start already. Come on. Oh, there we go. Every business has a story, and every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And unfortunately, too many people wait till the end, as Heather was talking about, to say, okay, I've been in this business for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it might be. And now I want to understand what it's worth, or now I'm going to sell, but I have no idea. So what we want to talk about today is really understanding wherever you are in your journey, whether you're, 3 months or 20 years away from of transitioning your company, to understand the value of your largest asset is just good business sense and good personal sense. So you can make well-informed decisions all along the way. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to uh, value versus risk. So as you can see with this slide, the less the perceived or real risk from a buyer, the higher multiple or more value they're going to pay. So that's really at its essence, is what we're looking at, is how much, as a buyer, if I'm looking at your company, where are the risks? Are you the whole business? Is one customer the 80% of your company? What happens if they go away? Or do you have, or are you well diversified? Do you have a good management team? You'll hear me talk about those things quite a few. But if you put your buyer's hat on during this presentation and after, and say, okay, if I was a buyer, if I was a competitor, where would I, if I was a buyer, where would I be concerned buying my company? Where are the points? Because I can tell you, I don't care how good, how big or small your company is. I've been doing this for over 24 years. I still have not found the perfect company that did not have one, so-called wart or one issue, that wasn't perfect. So most businesses have multiple things that aren't perfect. That's okay. They're still saleable. But what we want to do is try to take, some are saleable, some are not, depending on what those issues are. But what we want to do is try to help you understand what do buyers care about? What are the real value drivers or detractors? And help you, work with folks like Mike and Heather to help you build that value up, enhance that value. Because again, what buyers care about is not what you did in your peak, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago. They really care about where is the company at today? Where is it going in the future? Because what they're buying is that future cash flow. That's what they're buying. So what is your cash flow now? What could it be with different buyers? You talk about synergies where 1 + 1 = 3, but that's what they're looking at, is where is this company going? So unfortunately, too many people hold on too long, and you'll see a slide on that later, that it just, the business goes up and all of a sudden hit that S curve and they go, oh, things are great. Why would I want to sell now? And then eventually you'll kind of hit the crest of that S curve and it'll come down and like, oh man, now my business is worth half of what it was, and we just hear that story all the time. So risk versus is multiple is really what buyers are looking at, and how can it transfer. So some of the value characteristics here. Now, again, this is not for every business. You take this with a grain of salt, and I'll talk to some of these that are more important than others. But customer concentration is probably in the top 3 of risk out there. Because again, if you had 2 companies that you could buy, and each of them had the same sales, same profit, maybe even customer B had more profit, but customer A had, their top customer was 5% and customer B's top customer was 80%, which one would you buy for the same price? You'd probably buy customer A, where you have that, you have one customer that's 5%, your top customer is 5%. So if you lose them, it's not good, but you don't sink the whole ship. The company can still carry forward. So here you can see, kind of below average, industry average, above average. So 90% of the customers are, the top 3 customers, 90%. And you can see the others. Average, what we talk about a lot is, as soon as that top customer gets around that 20-25% in total sales, that's when buyers start to say, well, I don't know if this is for me, or I'm going to bring down the value a little bit, or I'm going to maybe not give all cash at close, when I put some on earnout or something along that line. So growing with customers is really good, but sometimes you have to make that concerted effort to say, yeah, I could keep doing business with them. And if you just want cash flow and you don't care about selling your company, well then, yeah, one customer, they know you, you know them, and keep going. But if you truly want to transition this thing to a son or daughter management team or sell it, you've got to take that risk off the table. So you really need to make a concerted effort to drive sales and not take more, it'll be tough, but not take more business from that one customer, and really drive those sales. Ideally, contracts, multi-year contracts. I see that very few these days. Most of them are, 30, 60, 90-day cancel, can be canceled. But again, showing how much tenure have you had with these clients, Are they blue chip, companies, or are they, Joe's Pub on the corner that could be here today, could be gone tomorrow? And just how much are they making one big purchase, or are they making multiple reoccurring purchases? So that's customers, kind of some of the value characteristics. Industry and end markets. So is your industry discretionary, where, hey, if I've got a bunch of money, this would be really nice to have, but I don't need it. It's not a big deal if I don't get it. It's on my wish list. Or are your products and services non-discretionary? So the government tried to put us into one category or the other of can you stay open during the pandemic or not? But where are you at within your industry? Is it are there, we like to call them tailwinds, where things are going well, or are there headwinds where you're constantly kind of running into new hurdles now? Again, people want to buy things with a tailwind and good things going on. And I sold a company back in February of this year, and it was in the plastic lumber space. So it was more on the discretionary side, but with people not traveling and and everybody having more money and people wanting to make their backyards of their homes or their cottages nicer, they were making this plastic lumber, selling it to different Amish companies all over the Midwest, and they were making their Adirondack chairs and tables and picnic tables, all that stuff. And their industry was just going gangbusters. They went from a 3-week backlog to a 6-month backlog. So the buyer came in, they immediately started buying new machines, and they paid a premium because they knew that, hey, this thing is, we've got some good momentum here. And now the commercial industries, hotels and restaurants are going to, put into their new plans for their new restaurants and new hotels more patio space, which would be more, more of their stuff. And so what we thought was going to be a 13 to $15 million purchase price, we ended up getting over 20 offers, and it sold at 25 million. So you could see again, that having those tailwinds, and their EBITDA was going up, everything was rising. They were able to maximize that value in their sale. Suppliers. So everybody talks about customers. Very few people talk about suppliers, but it's the same thing. Are your top suppliers, your top three, 90% of the revenue, or you need this one critical piece to your product and you only have one supplier that's sourcing it. What happens if they go bankrupt, or what happens if they get bought out by another competitor and they don't want to do business with you, or whatever it might be? You can't control that, no matter how good the relationship is. So making sure that you have redundancy in your supplier chain, I think, has been highlighted with the pandemic now more than ever. And we're actually selling a company that is in the kind of bomb space, where they can X-ray space for bombs and things like that. So it sells all over the world, and they had everything redundancy except for one circuit board. They only had one one supplier for, and it really cost them in the sale. Some people backed out. Some people said, well, okay, well, we're going to do a little bit more of an earn out, because what happens if they go away? So they're actually working on an agreement right now to get control of that more as part of the sale. And it was just one supplier out of all of their suppliers. Otherwise, they had redundancy for everything. So that's a big piece, again, where there's risk. Another one is competition. Are you the low cost leader? Nothing wrong with that, but again, those companies are typically valued at more of a lower multiple, where you're just kind of a commodity, versus, do you have a proprietary product with really nice margins? I would say that this is big. People that call us and say, I want to buy a manufacturing company with a proprietary product, we could sell those every single day, and people don't even know really what that means, but that's what they want. Is when it comes to competition, and you look at your own businesses, how big is that moat, per se, or how big of a barrier to entry is it to to get into your space? Again, if I was going to compete with your company, could I do it easily? Would I have to make a big investment? Like in the M&A world, somebody could hang a shingle tomorrow. I don't have to. Someone doesn't have to buy $3 million worth of manufacturing equipment or anything else. So it's all then about results. What are the results? Who are the relationships that I have with my referral sources, or just how do I differentiate myself? And as you're looking at this, again, whether you're selling and what we talk with you on, or just for yourself when you're selling to your customers or your clients, is really spend some time looking at what we call it the three uniques. What are those three uniques where none of your competition can say that they have the exact same three things that you do. They might have one, a lot of them might have one, several might have two, but all three combined, no one else can state that. And hopefully those are what your customers really care about. So what are those things that people care about that you can say, we are different than anybody else? And then put that on your website, put that in your marketing brochures, and really, and obviously we would put that in the book when we went to market so people could see how you're different, how you differentiate yourselves, how you win business. Because again, what they want to do, a buyer wants to do is take it and not just maintain status quo. They want to take it to the next level. How can we do this? And the better the margin, again, the more interested parties. Because if I have some, if I'm buying your company and you have 5% margins versus 20% EBITDA margins, I've got to do 4 times the sales to get the same amount of bottom line than in the 5% company versus the 20% company. So margins are critical. Again, each industry is different, but most times we're seeing an EBITDA margin of 10% or more is what most buyers are looking for. Again, some industries just are smaller and it is what it is, but that 10% or more is what we're looking at. So what do we look at when we're doing what we call our EOV, or estimate of value? What do we look at? So again, the first thing that you need to look at are trends in the M&A marketplace. This is one of the mistakes that people make, is that, oh, I'll sell when I turn 65, or pick an age, and they take very little into account of what's going on in the M&A marketplace, of things that they can't control. So that could include just confidence. The more uncertainties typically in the marketplace, the lower the offers are, because I don't know what the future as a buyer is going to be. So I'm going to hedge my bets and lower that multiple a little bit. So that could be one. What's the lending environment? If banks are lending strong, well, the more I can leverage, the less equity I got to put in, so I can get a better return. As lenders come down, I have to put more equity in. Again, if I want to get that same return, my values are going to come down. Interest rates. Interest rates are extremely low right now, and lowest they've ever been. Those are going to tick up most likely sometime between 23 and 25, possibly sooner with all the inflation we're having now. But every time the interest rates go up a quarter point, that's a little bit more interest I have to pay. That's a little less equity or principal I have to pay. And again, I lower my value. And again, just what's going on in your industry. So trends in the M&A marketplace, your most recent data. So again, what's that trajectory of your company? Where is that going? Trends within your industry. Are you going into a bunch of headwinds and just there's issue after issue? Or are you going with a lot of good momentum behind you and a lot of things are falling into place where your industry and you and your competitors are growing and more people want your product or services? Historical cash flow and future earnings potential. So again, we usually go back 3 to the most 5 years. But what we put the most weight on is what we call a TTM, or trailing 12 months. So it's not even where we're going to look at just your 2020 numbers. We're going to look at what did you do starting June of last year through through May, or July of last year through June of this year. That those last 12 months, those are the most important months in your company's history, because that's what the buyers are going to put the most weight on, if not 100% of the weight on. So again, that's where holding on too long and you kind of eclipse that S curve and you're going down, you could have a great story, and as soon as this happens, your story changes and the multiples are going to come down and you're going to leave money on the table than if you would have sold sooner. The current economy, synergistic acquisition opportunities. So again, is there cross-selling opportunities between you and the buyer? Is there are there ways that you can reduce some redundancies and costs? Can they get you into a new market that you're not in right now? Whatever it may be. Value drivers and detractors, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then, as I mentioned, the lending and interest rate environment. So a lot of things go into your business. Some you can control, but a lot you can't control that will affect your valuation at the end of the day.
Hey, Scott, just
yes,
since you mentioned waiting too long as one example, I've seen recently of one where they, kind of what I call one-hit wonder. They're way low on revenue, had one fantastic year, and not sure if they can repeat it, but try to go sell based on that one fantastic year. How does that factor into some of those other factors you just mentioned?
Yeah, it'll help the story, but if you can't say, like, if that was 2020, but your 21 is down, 20%, they may discount it altogether and say that was just hey, COVID helped you, have a one-hit year wonder, and now everything's back to normal, to what your 19 numbers were, they'll almost eliminate it. And on the other side, we have buyers out there right now that if you had a really bad year tied to COVID, they're somewhat eliminating that as well, because if they want to buy a company, these buyers have to be pretty aggressive right now. But yeah, it helps tell the story if you're going up, but if you're immediately down, once it goes down, that story of, hey, this train's still going to go up is somewhat eliminated after that story, after that time frame. So here's, just to give you an idea of valuation. So if you go, man, I haven't had a valuation done in a while or ever. Well, again, unfortunately, you're with the majority. Only 43% have never had a valuation done ever in their lifetime of their company, and less than 15% had one done in the last 2 years. So what we recommend, and I think Mike Sibley and others would recommend, is every 2 to 3 years. You could do it every year, but you don't need to do it every year. Every 2 to 3 years, just to understand, how am I doing? Where am I at? Because again, things change. If you and to understand, kind of right the ship, and for strategic planning purposes, then for Heather and her team to come in, because like when we do an estimate of value, they just cost $2,500. We can get them done in about 3 weeks. It gives you a good realistic idea of what's going on in the marketplace. But then we're going to identify, here are the 2 or 3 things you're doing really well. Keep doing those. But here are the 2 or 3 things that you're not doing as well as your competitors or the industry, or just in general. There's some high risk here. And now with Heather's help or Mike Sibley's help or others, you can really focus in on what you can do to enhance those big risk points. Because if you try to do everything and make your company perfect, you're going to be all over the board and you're really not going to accomplish anything. And you're going to be really frustrated when you get a valuation 2 years, 3 years later, and you're still at that same number, or you might have taken your eye off the ball enough that it's actually lower than what it was, prior. So, but these are important points to see. And what we call, when the first valuation typically gets done, we call it the proud parent syndrome. And ironically, I've been using this forever, this title, but I just read an article, it came from the UK, that they actually did a study of business owners and parents. And when parents talk about their kids and when business owners talk about their business, the same lights lit up in the brain, or the same parts of the brain lit up. So there's a direct correlation to, when people talk about, well, it's almost like giving up my kid for adoption. There's some realness to that. And so just like a proud parent that has some, doesn't see all the flaws of their kids, like my stubborn 12-year-old daughter that didn't want a long jump. You have the same thing with the business. So so here's a picture of my kids from a few years ago. And the last one is this is what most of my clients look like when hey, I want to get a valuation done. I'm excited to get the number back. And because most people think their company's worth more than what it's really worth, this is usually what they look like after the fact a little bit. Like, hey, what are you talking about? And this is when she found out the ice cream shop was closing, and that was her last ice cream from the ice cream shop there. But but it's good to educate yourself and know, where are those pieces, and that's where Heather and Mike and others can help you identify those and fix those as well, because you can't see it. It's hard to read the bottle from the inside, so to speak, or to really understand what's working and what's not, because it's your business. So any questions at all so far on some of those items?
Nope. Again, super quiet. I think they're just enthralled.
Yeah, or they're all asleep.
They're not asleep.
All right. Well, I'm going to go through a couple just other education pieces here. So this is control versus liquidity. So you can see that on the top is control from an owner versus the most liquidity on the bottom right-hand side. So status quo is you just keep doing what you're doing. Nothing changes. You own 100% of your company, or whatever percentage you own now. And you're just taking out cash flow of the company as it goes. Some people want to say, hey, I want to take out some money to go buy, I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I want to buy a house down in Florida. Well, maybe I'll go with my lender where I have very little, if any, debt, and say, hey, why don't I do a debt recap? I want to put $2 million of debt on the books, because my company can afford that, and pull out $2 million and use that for the company. So I still own 100%, but now I got this debt that I didn't otherwise have. As you move down, there's minority recap, which again, there's a lot of buyers. 20 years ago, this was very hard to find. It was only friends and family, probably even 10 years ago. But now, because there are so many buyers out in the marketplace, and they're all competing with each other to deploy capital or put money to work, a minority recap is what some of their plans are. So now you continue to own the company, or you continue to own control of the company. You're making all the major decisions, but you get some either recapped, but they own now maybe 30% of the company, and you could take that money either to grow the business, maybe some growth capital, or you could just take it out of the company to diversify your risk a little bit, because right now obviously you have all your eggs in one basket, and that way Mike Kerrigan can invest that money for you, and again start making your money work for you versus you working for that money. Or the next level down obviously is a majority recap, and we see a lot of this. This is a lot of buyers playbooks right now. Hey, I'll buy 70-80% of the company, and you keep 20 or 30%, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner. And that's that doesn't, if you're burnt out and you want to be done, obviously that's not a good option. But but like for the group I sold the business for in February, they saw this big opportunity down the road, but they didn't want to spend at their age in their 60s, early 60s, and one was in their 50s. They didn't want to spend millions of dollars in equipment. They said, hey, why don't we, we got a great value right now. Let's take some chips off the table and let's roll over some of those proceeds into NewCo. And now we still get that second bite at the apple 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road, whatever it might be. So, and in this, so if you see an opportunity in front of you, or if, you just want to, again, take some risk off the table because it's a good time to sell. Now is a good time to sell. It's not always a good time to sell. Even though your company could be doing great, there are times that you want to sell, and there are definitely times that you do not want to sell. After the Great Recession, I'd never worked so hard in my life to lose so much money in 2009 and 10. Values were just down. There wasn't a lot going on. Banks weren't in the game, and it was just tough to sell companies. But if you are burnt out, or you just want to be, one of these people that, hey, when I'm done, I'm done. Then you sell 100% of the company. And there's pros and cons to all of these. There's other options as well that you could do, but these are the major options. But it just gives you an idea of how much cash you're going to get out of the business versus how much control you're going to still have. Now, I will say in the majority recap, you still will have control of the day-to-day typically. These people that are buying your company do not want to come in and tell you how to run your day-to-day business. What they want to do is in most cases, again, there's good and bad actors and everything. And definitely in private equity, there are good private equity groups and there are bad private equity groups that, will take advantage of you 100%. But the good ones will typically look and say, hey, where can we fill in the holes in your management team? What do you need? How could we grow? Let them look at, well, if we bought company A or B, we could gain these synergies. Okay, let them work on that acquisition, but you keep running the day-to-day business and not take your eye off the ball, or whatever, or putting you in the role that you enjoyed most in doing just that, and not having all the weight of everything. The buck stops with you, and in the majority recap, the personal guarantees go away typically, and you could just do what you love to do a little bit more. So again, multiple options there. I'm not going to touch a lot on this, but this is just again, the difference between a minority and a majority recap, which we talked about a little bit. And then this is what a buyer is going to do. So if you look at how am I going to build value, a private equity group, this is kind of their blueprint of what they're going to do. So the current value there in the bottom left corner, evaluate and prioritize growth strategies. This is what I've worked with Heather and Mike Sibley. These guys are really good at helping you find these strategies and then helping hold you accountable or helping you get there faster. Then they're going to recruit, evaluate, and hire leaders. Where are the gaps in the existing management team? As you'll see, management team is one of the biggest value drivers or detractors when you can go to selling your company. Because again, how transferable is this company? Assess and implement technology systems. So again, how can we professionalize the company? What can we put in place to make the company more professional, so that next tier of buyer, that larger buyer, will say, wow, it's not run like a mom and pop. It's really run like a professional company. So they'll pay more because there's less risk and it'll be easier to transition into their existing company. Again, execute and integrate any strategic acquisitions, as we talked about, developing the sales team and recruiting them. I can't tell you how many times our sales efforts are, hey, we're doing all this and we really don't sell at all. We're just order takers. Well, that's good, but think about how much better it could be if you develop a sales team and had some kind of a proactive approach. And again, driving sales those last couple of years will help you maximize that value and that multiple. And then eliminating any obstacles to growth. So that's kind of the blueprint that if you did a minority or majority recap, this is some kind of what they would take you on. But again, this is something that you could do without them to make your company more valuable and more saleable in the future as well. So what are the value drivers? Again, I've mentioned many of these, but management team. Do you truly have the management team in place? I can't tell you how many sellers I've talked to over the last 20 plus years that almost wear it as a badge of honor to say, you know what? I work 80 hours in this business and I haven't taken a vacation in 7 years. And I used to be that. I'd be like, I'd come in at 2, 3 in the morning. I'd be like, yeah, no one else puts in more time than me. But think about that. If you're a buyer, who wants to be getting up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning and going into working days and nights and weekends? And if it's all about me, if I leave, even if I want to stay, but I do the long jump and break my leg, I can't come into the office, or I get hit by the proverbial bus. Even if I wanted to, even if I told you as the buyer, as a seller, I'm going to stay for 5 years, if I'm not here, how much of that value is going to transition? So having the management team, running the day-to-day, bidding jobs or quoting jobs, who has relationships with the customers, especially your top customers. I've heard that so many times. Oh yeah, we've got our employees have the relationship with the customers, except for the top 5 that make up 70% of the business. I have those. It's like, well, no, then you pretty much have the relationship with the majority of the customers. So transitioning those relationships over a period of time. So yeah, they could still call you, but ideally they go, oh yeah, no, the customers, yeah, they all call Jim. He's head of sales now. I haven't talked to a customer in 2 years, other than to say, hey, how are you doing? Or they came to our Christmas party or whatever it might be. The predictability and the trajectory should be trajectory of business performance. So again, are you going up? Are you going down? Are you steady? What buyers don't want to see is down, and also a yo-yo effect where, hey, up 1 year, like Mike talked about, up 2 years, down a year for no reason, up a year, down for 2 years for no reason, because it's all about that predictability. What can they predict for future success? So you want to have it at least steady, if not ideally those last 1, 2, 3 years on an upward trend. Margins, again, 10% or better in most industries, and cash is king. At the end of the day, it's about what kind of cash flow are you going to bring? Unless you have recurring revenue, like a financial advisor or a SaaS model where, revenue's coming in every single month, whatever it might be, then you're looking at multiples of revenue. But for the vast majority of all of us, it's what is that EBITDA multiple? And if you're below 2 million in revenue, well, then it might be what's that seller's discretionary earnings number, and really the only difference between SDE or seller's discretionary earnings and EBITDA is you're adding back the salary to SDE. So it's where with EBITDA you leave a salary expense in there for yourself at fair market to run the business. But cash is king. So again, here where I know we all love to save tax dollars and not pay any more than we have to the government, but those personal expenses, again, do it for as long as you want, but that last 1, 2, 3 years, that's when you really want to spend the time to drop as much money to the bottom line. Yes, you're going to pay more in taxes, but instead of paying maybe 28 or 30% or 35%, whatever it might be, you're going to get 3, 4, 5, 6 times, maybe more every dollar that's to the bottom line. You're going to get that multiple in value or purchase price. Process and systems, again, we talked about if it's all in your head, again, what am I buying? Because if you leave as the seller, I'm at risk for, so putting all the systems down and all the systems and processes down. And again, I know that's something that Heather has done for other companies that she's worked with. And it just is so valuable because now it's not only do you have it captured, but now you can train your employees faster. If someone leaves, you can get the new employee up to speed faster. And it just really is, it's one of those things that, again, those private equity groups do that to get such a higher value for the company. And then lastly, how can you scale it? Is your company scalable? And in what ways can you look at, can you look at your industry different to get more scalability or more reoccurring revenue in your business? And lastly, the one that I don't have on here is clean financials. If you are constantly moving around your expense categories and there's just no rhyme or reason and stuff goes above and below the cost of goods line or gross profit line, it's really hard to get my arms around as a buyer what your financials are. So what we've strongly recommend is, again, the last 3 years you run your financials the same, but instead of just getting compiled statements, get reviewed or ideally audited. If you're over 10 million in revenue or $1 million or $2 million in EBITDA, I would strongly recommend audited financial statements the last 3 years. Again, you don't have to do it for 20, but the last 3 years, it will help you get a higher value. And what we're seeing right now as a big trend is what we call a QOV, or quality of earnings report. And the buyer is going to do one, but what we're doing with our clients is we're actually doing them ahead of time from the seller standpoint. So that way we can understand, number one, we know the financials are strong. We know that the adjustments that were made are correct. We know that the revenue are in the right months and right years, same with the expenses. And we can really stand behind those numbers, because what a QOV is going to do on the sell side is they're going to tear apart your financials just like a buyer is going to. So if there's any issues that come up, which a lot of times something could pop up, nothing malicious, just shoot, we weren't doing this right. I didn't know. You have time to fix it and wait to go to market if it's a big issue, or at least we can address it up front and say, hey, this has been an issue for the last 10 years. We've made the change, but obviously, going forward, we should be doing it like this. And because when you can, we call it go ugly early. The last thing you want to do when you're trying to sell your company is hide anything, because between the QOV, the attorneys, the bank due diligence, everything that's going to get done, they are going to find any skeletons in the closet. So to come out with it early helps your credibility. Also, buyers are typically more lenient upfront, and oh yeah, I can deal with that, no big deal. Wow, these are credible people. They actually told me the good and the bad, versus them finding it in diligence or at the 11th hour, and now it's gonna be like, geez, I wonder why Michael didn't tell me that. I wonder what else he's not telling me. Do I want to really partner with Michael? Is he honest and truthful going forward? Can I trust him? So, doing these QVs up front that Mike Sibley's group can do are so huge, because we've actually been told that from multiple buyers, both strategic and private equity, that they'll end up paying on average about a half turn more, or half multiple more. So instead of a 5 multiple, they'll pay a 5.5 multiple, just because they trust the numbers more, because otherwise they build a little fudge factor in, because they know they're probably going to find something, and they don't want to change the price, because they know that the sellers aren't very excited that if there's a haircut or they drop the price by $2 million at 2 weeks before closing, that usually doesn't help anybody in the process. So by if you had 2 million in EBITDA, by doing those, it might cost you $20,000 to $50,000, sometimes more, sometimes less, but you're going to get another $1 million in value. So the return there on that investment is huge. So what are some common mistakes? And I've hit on some of these, so I'll just run through these pretty quickly, and then we can open up for any questions. But number one is unrealistic expectations. So as you see here, these are national surveys that are done. What was the number one reason why a business didn't sell? 50 to 60% of the time, it's that proud parent syndrome, that the seller had a too high of a number on there. They didn't take the time or invest a little money to understand, what is my business truly worth in today's marketplace. So that's and the next one is downward trends of the business, and so on. So making sure you understand the value, trying to sell it themselves. I'm not going to go through all of that, but it's again kind of like boxing. If you get into a ring and you're 0-0, and you're going up against a corporate development team or a private equity group that they're 30-2, who do you think is going to win that? Who do you think is going to win that fight? Usually it's not the owner that's trying to do it the first time with their biggest asset, where they're emotionally tied to the company. Waiting too long or burnout. Again, this is just an illustration of what I talked about before. You can see that if you really plan and execute on a plan and finish strong, you can significantly increase the value. Well, the same is true if you, like most owners out there that are burnt out. And I know Heather's talked before that 50% of the time people get out of their business due to something that's not in their control: death, divorce, disability, whatever else it might be. So again, going out on your terms is so important by planning earlier, if I can drive that point home anymore. Excess working capital. So this is one that, again, your CPA can work with you on, but most people don't understand this, that when you sell your business, again, if it's more of a manufacturing or a larger company, over 2 million, distribution, manufacturing, and service companies, you're going to have the intangibles, which is your brand and your website and things like that. You're going to have your tangibles, which is any equipment or computers or things along that line. But then you're also going to have your financial assets that go with the company. So what a buyer wants to buy is, what is that working capital peg, or how much working capital do I need, which is AR plus inventory minus AP. So you can see in this case that the company needs, $2.5 million, the 3 million minus the 500,000 for working capital, and that stays in the company. And again, I've heard sellers go, well, I sold that business, that AR is mine. And unfortunately, it is what it is, and this is how the industry works, that there's some level of working capital that's going to be left in the company. Now, again, cash you have in your checking account that's not tied to customer advances or deposits, that you all keep on top of the value. So we call it a cash-free, debt-free business. So you're going to keep the cash. You're also going to pay off any long-term debt, just like you would if you sold your house and there was a mortgage on your house. But then there's going to be some amount of working capital left in the business. So this is an area where most people get lax on, especially after 20 years or even 10 years, you've got no debt on the business. So to be able to spend some time on this and say, okay, let's get AR down to $1.5 million, because again, Heather and Mike should pay me in 30, but they've been working with me for 20 years. They're good for it. I know them well. They pay in 60 days, no big deal. I don't need the money anyways. That mentality starts to come through. But if you can collect in 30 days again and get you that down to $1.5 million, and again, I've seen people go, well, I've got the room for it, so why don't I just fill up the warehouse and have inventory on hand just in case? Well, what do you really need? What don't you need? So maybe we get that down to 700,000. And again, AP is using other people's money. So the more that you can use other people's money and stretch out those terms without damaging any relationships, the better for the business, because it shrinks that working capital. So just by making these little adjustments, it's $1.3 million versus 2.5. And at the time of the sale, you will be able to put $1.2 million more in your pocket. So again, the value is tied to cash flow. This is just a variable asset that comes with the company in most cases. So if you focus on this, and you only have to focus on it for 1 year, typically, most times they go back and look at the last trailing 12 months and what was that average. And sometimes we can even get away with 6 months, or if it's cyclical, well, we can look at that. But this is something that in short to mid-term, you could really put a lot of money in your pocket. Talked about the financials, reactive versus proactive. Again, waking up one day and it's not fun anymore, and you're running away from the business because it's not fun anymore and you're burnt out, but you have no idea where you're going. I've had sellers that we've actually got more value than we thought we were going to get that end up pulling the plug on the deal and going back just because they don't know what that black hole looks like. So this is where, really reflect on what do I want to be remembered for? What's left on my bucket list? What do I want to do in life, and go towards something, along with then, again, preparing earlier that you can run a proactive strategy versus just waking up one day and saying, oh, I'm burnt out, it's not fun anymore, let's sell the business. Again, a written exit strategy. This is something that you want to have in place. It's just good business sense, but most people don't. So you can see that 90+%, 95% or thereabout believe that they should have one. But most cases, I've seen business owners plan more for their kid's wedding, their 50th anniversary, or being in Green Bay, even though it's not a picture of Green Bay, their fantasy football team. I think I've seen people spend more time on their fantasy football draft than they have on preparing to exit their largest asset. That's going to completely change their entire life depending on how they sell their business. So just doing those, again, here you can see the different sizes of companies that actually spend some time. So over 40% of the time in the 5 million and above, 5 to 50 million, have not sold, or have not done any planning for their business. And again, not knowing how much they need, that's what Mike Kerrigan talked about. We call it the three-legged stool of understanding what is the value in my business, then sitting down with your accountant to understand what am I going to net out of this business after taxes and any other debt. And then at the end of the day, what is my lifestyle number? And does that net number equal or exceed the lifestyle number? Then great. And if it doesn't, then you either have to lower the number like Mike talked about, or work with some folks like Heather and Mike Sibley to drive the value. And then the last one is just not having the right advisors on the deal team. So the biggest one here is the attorney. You need to have the right attorney on the deal. And this is, again, like you have to have brain surgery, and you're going to use your general doctor who have done your physical for the last 30 years. You need to go to the brain surgeon. They're going to work with the general doctor, just like they're going to work with your attorney, but I've seen people work for 30 years. We get them a great value only to have their attorney who didn't know M&A blow the deal up. And they weren't even back to square one. They were back below square one because they had taken their eye off the ball, and the business just wasn't the same as it was before. So with that, I am right at 10:45. Wanted to open it up for any questions that that anybody may have.
Impressive on the time, Scott. That's great. I'm
Thank you.
curious about, so first I'll add, I think the attorneys are critical, and I've also seen business owners, particularly 5 million or less, I think is where I see this more, where they go to their standard accountant that they've been using, or sometimes even their bookkeeper or their financial planner, and they say, what do you think the value of my business is? And it's just way off, right? Because
Yeah.
that person just does not have the level of expertise. So I do think it's so important to again, find the right advisors to partner with. What about COVID? So we talk about that trailing 12 months. How has COVID impacted how companies and sellers and buyers are looking at that 12-month period?
Yeah, it's really been interesting because unlike, the 9/11 and the dot-com bust and then the Great Recession, the volume of deals came down, but immediately in those other two, values came down, multiples came down, everybody pulled back for a period of time. With COVID, what happened was just because there's so many buyers out there, the disparity, there's always been more buyers than sellers. Well, now it's even more because so many sellers said, well, there's no way I could sell my business now, so I'm going to take it off the market or not go to market. That gap even widened. So what we've seen is that if a company was not affected, or the few that were positively affected, they're actually getting a higher multiple now than they would have pre-COVID. And for the companies that were affected kind of Q2, maybe Q3, but came back third, fourth quarter to at or better than pre-COVID numbers, people are kind of eliminating that, and you're getting still strong values. In fact, really good multiples. And for those that were negatively affected and haven't come back, what we're seeing is buyers are still paying pretty close to the same value, but they're saying, hey, 30% of your business didn't come back yet, so I'll give you 70% of the value, at close, and then we'll put 30% on an earnout over a period of time. So, so unless they're almost basically just shutting their doors, they're still able to get a pretty good value. Again, especially if you can show that how you've adapted, and that your sales and profits are at or above pre-COVID numbers, or be ready for an earnout over a period of years. We, like I said, we're doing one right now where it was if you go to a Marriott and eat a bagel or a piece of bread or English muffin, they produce all those and sell them to Marriotts and other hotels. Well, obviously their sales were cut in half immediately, and now they're starting to slowly come back. But a buyer basically said, hey, I'll give you X value, but over 3 or 4 years, I'm going to pay out that additional value if it comes back. If it doesn't come back, well then, Mr. Seller, you're not going to get that value. But if it comes back like everybody thinks it will, they should be able to get some, if not all of that value. But it's obviously a risk because it's over a period of time. And now you also have to have the buyer make sure they're running the business as well as you would run the business.
Yeah. And then the other question I have personally is with so many business owners retiring, so many baby boomers retiring and wanting to sell, is there any concern? Should business owners be concerned about a flooding of potential competitor sales in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, you got 3 million baby boomers out there right now, and they're all going to transition at some point in time, whether they think they are or not. And so right now I wouldn't say it's an issue now. I mean, you would need a lot, but I know we have deals under LOI right now that are slowing down a little bit just because buyers are looking at so many deals. Everybody's trying to get a deal done now before the end of the year to try to get ahead of the tax increases that they think Biden's going to put in starting in 2022, or maybe it goes out to 2023. But most folks are thinking 2022. So yeah, at some point it will, where it's all supply and demand, right? Econ 101. And if you got more sellers than buyers, those multiples are going to come down because buyers have more choices. Just like right now, sellers have more choices. I mean, we averaged, I think in the last 9 months, where we usually average 2 to 4 offers per client, I think we averaged like 6 offers in the last 9-12 months.
Wow. All right.
So yeah, if anybody's thinking about, well, I should possibly sell in the next 3 years, again, with interest rates coming up in 23 to 25, some economists are predicting a recession at some point around there. It's all we know is it's a great time to sell right now. And it won't be good at some point in time, and then it'll get good again. And then what one economist is predicting is by 2030 or 2029, like Armageddon, because of Medicare and Social Security and everything being bankrupt and everything else. If nothing changes, he's predicting get everything, sell everything, by 2030 sort of a thing. But who knows? It's one group's thoughts, but they do have a 94.7% predictability rating. So I think it's one of the better economists in the country. But yeah, timing again definitely has a lot to do with what value you'll get and what structure you'll get. Again, more uncertainties, the more you might have to do seller notes or earnouts and things along that line. Most deals, I would say, are 70 to 80% cash at close and 20-30% alternative financing, which could be a seller note, could be an earnout, or could be equity rollover.
Great. Well, Scott, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for showing up despite your situation. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure you're ready to get off this call and get some rest and recuperate. So this is great information. Again, we'll forward out your information to everybody who may have additional questions that didn't want to speak up on the call. We'll go ahead, say thank you to you, Scott, and we'll adjourn for a few minutes and pop back on at 12 o'clock where we're going to hear Mike talk about tax planning and structuring the deal. So we'll see you all back shortly. Thank you.